When you start to increase the price of an AEG, manufacturers typically go one of two ways. They can have the latest trendy rail system or electronic innovation, or they can try to innovate in a more subtle way. Better quality control practices, more precise machining. In other words, improving the tried and true. Such is Hong Kong-based ENC. They remind me a little bit of LCT back before they became a recognized name. Just like LCT, ENC just goes with what they know works. They're not really bringing anything new to the table, but what they are bringing is a very decent gun at a very decent price. These guns are great for players who may have already had their first polymer AEG and are looking for the next step up. Of course, with the quick change spring system and full metal build, it also makes an excellent first AEG as well that you can keep on upgrading as you go along. All 5 of these models have the same internals apart from the inner barrel length, so just find the one that best suits your taste or your budget. We've chosen this platform for our next loadout video. This time it's going to be a mid-tier loadout at about $600 Canadian. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll understand why we think it's one of the best mid-tier AEGs. Let's go over how the quick change spring system works. This allows you to swap springs on the fly to fit whatever velocity your field dictates. You'll need 2 tools to get the job done, a long number 2 Phillips screwdriver, as well as a flathead screwdriver. Here's a table of velocities you can expect with an M90 and an M100 using Crytac .2s. Remove the stock by pulling down on the stock adjustment pin. Insert the Phillips driver into the buffer tube and unscrew the retaining screw. Pull off the buffer tube, it shouldn't take too much force. Try to keep the screw and plate inside the buffer tube, but if it falls out, you'll just have to line it up when you reassemble. For the full stock, the top screw behind the stock is just a really long buffer screw. This knurled metal piece simply unscrews, revealing the quick change spring guide. Push it in with a flathead, turn until the tabs align, and the spring guide pops right out. It's a metal spring guide with bearings. I like that instead of 2 locking tabs, there's actually 4 for a little bit of extra security. Replace the spring with the spring of your choice. Looser coils forward and reinsert the spring guide. Make sure the line is either vertical or horizontal. It should lock into place. Sometimes it'll take some encouragement to seat properly. Don't forget the metal piece, this is just an extra failsafe. The buffer tube screw locks into this instead of the spring guide, which I think is a good design. And that's all there is to it. 5 minutes later and you're ready to shoot. There's a couple different quick change spring styles out there, like the Crytac one that requires you to actually take out the mech box. Now, I think this design is a good mix of convenience and reliability. The packaging for the ENC is about as no frills as you can get, but it is good where it counts. Inside the nondescript cardboard box, the gun is nicely protected on all sides with water jet cut foam. It's boring to look at, but I'd have no problems transporting my gun in this until I get a gun case. As far as accessories go, well, you get the generic instruction leaflet, standard issue 300 round high cap, and that's it. But hey, I'd rather them sell it for less rather than swing me a poor quality battery that I won't even end up using. Let's talk externals. To start off, all these guns are full metal builds. Everything from the flash hider to the rail to the receiver to the sights are full metal. Now, of course, there are a lot of metal M4s on the market, but at this price point, a lot of them still do use polymer. Pick up the gun and it really feels more premium than its price would suggest. It comes in at 2.66 kilograms for the lightest one, all the way up to 3.22 kilograms for the M16. For way of reference, the Crytac CRB comes in at 2.52 kilograms and the polymer CM16 Raider is 2.16 kilograms. Fitment of parts is good with a solid barrel, upper to lower, and buffer tube. One thing that stands out to me is the fitment of this classic rail. By design, it's quick detach and is notorious for a lot of wobble. On this one, movement is minimal and goes to show the level of fitment on these guns. I did notice that the rail is slightly different height than the receiver, but not by much. Also, the classic sights on the CQB and M16 had a little bit of play to them, but honestly, that's about all the negatives I could find, and believe me, I did look. No complaints on the finish, with a smooth, matte texture without being grainy. Color matching is decent with a uniform look throughout the gun. By now, you probably know that I like a good selector switch, and this one does not disappoint. Not only does it have a nice smooth action, it notches into place with authority with a nice click. It's actually nicer than the VFC and Crytac one, though those are ambidextrous. The selector markings are sadly not engraved, rather laser etched. Speaking of markings, these models are completely devoid of trademarks. At least they didn't put any weird misspelled trademarks on them. And of course, this does mean that you could laser etch your own. Hint hint, something I hope we might be able to offer in the future. Underneath the trigger guard, you get the model number as well as individual serial number. On most M4s, the bolt catch system is usually pretty pathetic, more of an afterthought than anything. This one uses the VFC style bolt catch system, and they did a pretty good job of it too. The charging handle has a good resistance, and the bolt catch engages with a nice click. Once you're done adjusting hop up, the bolt release actually takes a bit of force and snaps that dummy bolt cover closed. I mean, it's not going to be like a gas bolt, but it's little details like this that sets a gun apart. As far as mags go, the ENCs aren't too picky and most mags should fit, but Blue Box still remains one of the nicest to click in. And ENC's own box set of plastic 70 round mags is a very nice fit, but still drops free. Looking at the internals, again, it's nothing we haven't seen, but everything is standard V2 compatible and assembled well. One thing I noticed is none of the screws were wrenched on or too loose from the factory. Every screw seemed to take the same amount of tension to release. Also, they chose to use Torx T9 screws, which are a little less prone to strip than Phillips. Inside the mech box, the first thing I noticed is actually how little grease there is. This is actually about how much grease I would use, just a thin coating of grease on key areas like the gears, rails, and piston head. Some guns have grease slathered on everywhere, and eventually it can make its way out of the nozzle and into the inner barrel. You get full metal piston teeth, and all the gears ride on 8mm bearings, which is nice to see. The motor is nothing fancy, and with the 9.6 we are getting about 14 rounds per second with the stock spring. Moving on to the hop-up, it's a classic one-piece metal unit, and the dial is nice and tight. The inner barrel is brass, and the inner diameter is 6.03. I like how tight the inner barrel fit inside the outer barrel. If there's any play here at all, you're gonna have accuracy issues. The trigger is a standard physical contact. No MOSFET here, so I'd avoid high power LiPo batteries. There's 1mm of dead play before tension ramps up. The brake is undefined and makes the trigger jump a bit. The reset is almost at the start of travel and has a very nice click to it. Overall, the trigger isn't gonna wow you, but it's put together tight and the action is smooth. As far as FPS deviation, it's about 5 FPS total, which isn't that bad at all, but I have a feeling an O-ring nozzle would get that down to 2 to 3 FPS. And there you have it, ENC's lineup. I wanted to really show why I thought these were one of the best mid-tier AEGs. But the truth is, on the outside, they just don't really stand out that much. It really boils down to good quality control as well as build quality. If you can drop by the store, I'd strongly urge you to check one out in person. For the price, they're pretty hard to beat. As always, thanks for watching, subscribe for more content, and we'll catch you on the next one.